So before anyone gets funny about this video, let me just explain something. I'm not going to actually expose the company that makes these pegs. What I'm about to do is sort of a review on and explain to you something. So to cut a long story short, going back a few years, I was making a certain batch of BMX pegs, and when it comes to the heat treating process, I found out that the chrome surface on the pegs was a bit naff. So as you can see, when I sort of heated up the pegs, I realised that the chrome was a bit dodgy. It actually burnt the chrome surface, so they looked a bit nasty when it was finished. The actual peg strength, everything about the peg wasn't affected. It was just a look. They wasn't very pleasing to the eye. So what happened to those pegs, the burnt ones? Well, I sold them for £5 a pair, which obviously people snapped up really quickly. £2.50 a peg. It's a bargain. And there was about 6 pairs. They sold really quickly. Then I had a guy message me. He asked if there's any £5 pegs left. I said no, they're all gone. But I do have the original £10 a pair pegs. The £10 a pair ones, awesome colour, nice finish, super strong. But he didn't want to pay £10 a pair. Well, it'd have been £12 because he had to pay £2 for the postage, and he wasn't willing to pay that. So I had to act professional and say, yes, no worries mate, go find something else. And that's where this experiment, this kind of review thing comes into place. He wouldn't pay that money for my pegs, so I thought to myself, what can you actually get for £10 a pair? Because in all fairness, especially in these days, trying to find a pair of pegs for £10 is a hard task. Most bike shops I searched online, most pegs are actual £10 each. Then you have to pay postage on top of that. So I had to go on eBay, and my good friend eBay come up with some bloody bangers. And first of all, there were pegs on there, £10 a pair, but they were like the threaded option, the old school ones that actually screw onto the thread. That wasn't gonna work. Then I thought to myself, in this day and age, the #1 peg supplier, the #1 peg seller, it's the plastic pegs. And I found a pair of plastic pegs on eBay for £10 with free shipping. Let me just explain something. This empty can of Lucasade weighs the same amount as this peg, and I'm not shitting you. They pretty much weigh the same. See, I made some plastic pegs once. Just used the original metal core, slipped over some acetyl plastic on the sleeve, and they worked alright. The actual plastic itself is not the best, but as you can see, it's got a full steel bore, and they hold up alright. Whereas these pegs don't have a core at all. They have a metal end, they don't actually have an inner core, which makes them stupidly light, but also stupidly weak. Let me just state something. In the item description, on the actual packaging, it doesn't say anything about what age these pegs were made for, if you know what I'm saying. If they put an age restriction or a weight restriction on these pegs, then I can kind of understand. You know, when I made my pegs, they were made for all ages. You can have a 90-year-old granny grinding on my pegs. I wasn't going to sort of discriminate against that. Or a 20-stone bodybuilder. He could happily grind my pegs. I know they'll last. Because the art of making pegs is all about the CNC work, the programming, the way you actually machine the pegs, and the material you use. Because the material I use is bloody hard, and it's really, really good. And the way I made my pegs, the thing I could do, I could machine one, go out and grind it, wasn't quite right, make it slightly thicker, go out and grind it again, perfected it. And the problem is, if you mass produce a peg and it's not right, then you've got sort of thousands of pegs that are no good, but yet they still sell them. So yeah, back to these pegs. They actually come with a 14mm hole, both of them. And they actually come with 2 10mm little converter washers. So if you've got a 10mm axle on the front, you put these in. In the early days, when the plastic pegs come out, back in sort of 2006, 2007, the first craze of plastic pegs come out, and it didn't last very long. I'm not even going to mention that company, people will know what I'm talking about. And they designed a peg exactly like those. Had no metal inner core. So they just snapped. See, I know my materials. I know my materials inside out. I have been a CNC programmer for 14 years. And I've seen all materials. From brass, to bronze, to steels, to plastics, to aluminiums, to stainless steel, to everything in between. And I know what's strong, what's weak, what machine's good, what heats up good, and what's durable. And another thing with these pegs, on the packaging, the item description, it didn't state anything about what the actual material was. All it said was it was plastic with an aluminium end, which doesn't mean anything. To a normal person, that means everything, but to someone like me, it doesn't mean anything. If someone said to me, I've got a pair of pegs, they are steel, to me, that doesn't mean anything. If you've got a high tense steel, rubbish. If they're 4130, 4140, E and 8 steel, then that's gravy, baby. And you'll find on most decent BMX websites, when they sell plastic pegs, they all state exactly what that plastic is and what the aluminium core is. Same with like BMX stems and all pedals and everything like that. If it's CNC machined, if it's sort of, I don't know, a 6061 aluminium, then it's good quality aluminium. If it doesn't actually state what the actual material is, you got to worry. So the question is, that kid who wouldn't buy my pegs for £10 a pair, probably had to go out and search for some other pegs, probably ended up having to pay £10 a pair for some pegs without the postage, ended up with these, I expect. So how long will they actually last? See, I shouldn't dive in head first here, so I'm slagging off these pegs just on the way they look, but I've not sort of physically used them yet. So I'm on my way to the skate park, the pegs are on, and I'm going to have a few grinds and see how they last. And I'm going to be able to give you a real good preview of using these pegs when I'm grinding them. Because what I can do is put on a basket peg on the front, which has my modification GoPro mount. So the GoPro is going to be looking directly at the rear peg as it's grinding. And you're going to see what happens to it. How long is it going to last? Will it last? I have no idea. I've never used them before. For all I know, these pegs could be amazing, and I'm going to look like a right dickhead. So yeah, Hamilton Skate Park was absolutely rammed, so give that a miss. I'm here in Taunton at some old sketchy ledges. So I'm going to try these out. There is so much glass about there in the ghetto. so the peg didn't snap, which is a surprise. But it wore through. 5 grinds and it's pretty much gone through. The reason why I chose a low ledge, because if it did snap, I didn't want to hurt my ass. Because if you're grinding like a higher ledge and it decided to snap, it would have hurt a lot. And the ledge does go quite high down the bottom, which I was kind of stalling, but I didn't want to put too much pressure on it. If it did snap, it's a far way down.
Are we going to rekindle our marriage or not?
So I feel I'm being slightly biased at the moment with this whole peg issue. But let me just explain something. Plastic pegs without a metal inner core are useless. And that's not bullshit, that is a fact. No plastic pegs work unless they got a metal inner core. In all fairness, these pegs, they would be alright if they had a metal inner core, and they'd probably be alright for really light skate park use. But the item description didn't say anything about that. So yeah, I've only ground that little ledge in Taunton. So I was sat at home and I thought, actually, let's grind it a little bit more. So I'm going to turn the peg around to a different side. And I'm at Glastonbury skate park and I'm going to grind some actual wax ledges and see how long it lasts. So yeah, that last grind was pretty much the last grind. The reason why I didn't hold the feeble is because the peg pretty much gave up the ghost. You can see, look, it broke through. It kind of went all weird on the grind. It popped me off. So that was 5 grinds on the street and 2 grinds at the skate park. And yeah, I'll admit, I didn't turn the peg to a different side because I didn't have a spanner to do the anti-twist nut. And when you don't have a spanner to change the actual nut, obviously you can't put the peg back in a different position because it sort of hits against the dropout. And it's a bit of a weird setup again. It's like you've got to have a 3mm Allen key to undo a little screw, and then I think it's an 8mm spanner to undo the actual anti-twist nut to then put back in place. It's a weird setup. Cut a long story short, it's a weird setup. So what's the moral of the story with this? Do you get your money's worth buying pegs for £10 on eBay? No, you do not. No, you definitely do not. Doing 5 grinds on a ledge on street and doing 2 grinds on a ledge at a skate park and it falls apart, and yeah, you can turn the peg. And yeah, I didn't turn the peg, but Jesus Christ. So yeah, in all fairness, these pegs, epic fail, which I knew they was gonna be. I did have a funny feeling that it was gonna snap, but in all fairness, I was landing as smooth as I possibly could so they didn't snap, because I didn't want them to snap. And like I said, this is not a dig at plastic pegs, because plastic pegs in general are really, really good. They use decent plastic, they use metal inner cores, and everyone uses them these days. And I can understand why. You know, less friction, you can do aluminium rails and all that sort of thing. I know all that. But buying cheap doesn't work. I like to keep it old school. I'm never going to buy pegs ever again because I make my own. I'm going to stick to metal. I sometimes put plastics on if I need to because I make my own. So if you enjoyed this sort of ghetto review, first ever product review I've done, comment below. I might do some more if I'm searching on eBay and something sort of dodgy pops up, tickles my fancy. And some of you are probably watching this now saying, ah, you wimp, you could have gunned some rails, gone down some stairs. There is no way I was trusting these pegs doing handrails down sets of stairs. There's just no way. I'd have rather done rails in my pants. And on that bombshell, thanks for watching this one. Bye for now.